My mother-in-law poured something strange into my drink when she thought I wasn't looking. "Special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law," she said with a smile. I thanked her and discreetly switched glasses with her husband, who always criticized my career. 45 minutes later. My name is Julian Mercer, 32 years old, independent photographer based in Asheville, North Carolina. I've built my business from nothing: weddings, wildlife, magazine spreads, the kind of work that pays the bills if you're good at it, and I am. But to my in-laws, especially Diane, what I do has never been enough. "How's the little photography hobby?" Gerald would ask at family dinners, not even trying to hide his disdain. He was an investment banker, the kind of man who measured success in square footage and stock options. Every Sunday dinner at their house was the same. Diane would fuss over her daughter while Gerald interrogated me about my finances. My wife Haley would squeeze my hand under the table, a silent apology for her parents. I'd been shooting a wildlife assignment in Montana all week, trudging through knee-deep snow to photograph bison for National Geographic. I was exhausted, but Haley insisted we couldn't miss her mother's birthday dinner. "Just a couple hours," she promised. I should have listened to that knot in my stomach when Diane cornered me in the kitchen, the way her eyes darted around before she handed me that drink, the slight tremor in her fingers as she said, "I made it special just for you." Something wasn't right. I just didn't know how wrong it was about to get. Haley and I met 6 years ago at an art exhibition where my work was featured. She was finishing her master's in environmental science, and I was just starting to make a name for myself. We connected instantly. She understood my need to capture the world through a lens, and I admired her passion for PR, protecting it. Her parents were another story. From our first meeting, Gerald made it clear he had expected someone different for his daughter, someone with a desk job, a retirement plan, a company car, someone exactly like him. Diane was subtler. She'd praise my photos while asking when I planned to settle into something stable. She'd invite me to family functions, then introduce me as the photographer instead of her son-in-law. For years, I tried to win them over. I'd bring expensive wine to dinner, show them published work, mention high-profile clients. Nothing changed their perception that I was just passing through their daughter's life, a phase she'd outgrow. Last Christmas, I overheard Diane on the phone. "Haley could have married Thomas, you know, orthopedic surgeon, family money, but she chose the creative one." The way she paused before creative made it sound like a disease. Gerald was more direct. When Haley and I announced we were trying for a baby, he pulled me aside. "Children are expensive, son. Maybe think about real employment before bringing one into the world." I never told Haley these things. She loved her parents despite their flaws, and I didn't want to force her to choose sides. So I smiled, shook Gerald's hand firmly at every visit, complimented Diane's cooking, and kept my thoughts to myself. But there were signs I should have taken more seriously. The way Diane would ask Haley to help in the kitchen whenever I talked about a successful project, how she'd accidentally exclude me from family photos, the time Gerald suggested therapy for Haley's impulsive decisions while looking directly at me. I ignored it all, thinking time would eventually bring acceptance. I was wrong. The Friday of Diane's birthday dinner, I returned from Montana with raw, wind-burned cheeks and a memory card full of images that would pay our mortgage for 3 months. I was bone-tired but showered, put on a button-down shirt, and drove us to her parents' colonial-style home in the expensive part of town. Dinner started normally. Gerald bragged about a recent deal. Diane fussed over the table settings. Haley's brother Owen and his wife Vanessa made polite conversation. I nursed a beer and counted the minutes until we could leave. After the main course, Diane announced she'd made her famous sangria for dessert. She disappeared into the kitchen and I offered to help carry glasses. That's when I saw it. She had 2 glasses separate from the others. As I entered, she quickly added something from a small vial into one of them. It wasn't a garnish or flavor. It was colorless, odorless, and she tucked the vial away the moment she heard my footsteps. "Oh, Julian, I've got this," she said too brightly. "This one's for you. Special recipe for my favorite son-in-law." My throat tightened. The glass had a barely perceptible film floating on top, catching the light. "Let me help you carry these," I said, taking both glasses she'd prepared. In the dining room, Gerald was checking his phone, barely looking up when I approached. "Sangria, sir?" I placed the tampered glass in front of him instead of taking it myself. I watched him drink, making an excuse about preferring water with my dessert. 45 minutes later, Gerald was pale, sweating, and rushing to the bathroom. The violent sounds of his illness echoed through the house. Diane's face drained of color when she realized what had happened. Her eyes met mine across the table, and in that moment I knew two things with absolute certainty. My mother-in-law had tried to poison me, and she knew that I knew. I didn't react. Didn't confront her. Just ate my chocolate cake while Haley rushed to check on her father. In the chaos that followed, Gerald insisting it must have been food poisoning, Diane stammering about bad shellfish, I quietly pocketed the untouched glass meant for me. Something had shifted inside me. The anger I felt wasn't hot or explosive. It was cold, deliberate. I wasn't just going to let this go, but I wasn't going to fight their way either. I was going to make them face exactly who they were. Later, as we sat on our porch watching the stars come out over the mountains, Eliza asleep in her crib upstairs, I realized something I'd never fully articulated before. I hadn't won by playing Gerald and Diane's game. I'd won by refusing to play it at all. I'd stood my ground, protected what mattered, and built my life according to my own definition of success, not with schemes or manipulation, but with honesty and quiet persistence. In the end, that was the most satisfying revenge of all, living well, on my own terms, with the family I loved beside me. I've built my career on capturing fleeting moments, but that day, I found myself part of a story I couldn't frame through a lens. My wife, Caroline, and I had been married for 5 years. She came from a wealthy family, the Prestons, who never hid their disapproval of me. In their eyes, I was a starving artist who had stolen their daughter from a more suitable match. Still, I tried to win them over, attending every Sunday dinner, listening politely to her father's lectures about real careers, and smiling through her mother's passive-aggressive comments about my quirky lifestyle. But nothing prepared me for what happened that evening. Caroline's parents had invited us for dinner, along with her older brother Matthew and his wife. The dining room smelled of rosemary chicken and aged wine. The table gleamed with polished silverware, as if we were preparing for a royal banquet. I had just finished a photo shoot for a local magazine and was exhausted, but I put on my best smile. The night began like any other. Small talk, veiled jabs, Caroline's father boasting about business deals. Then, midway through dinner, her mother brought out dessert, a rich chocolate mousse, and poured drinks for everyone. That's when it happened. She leaned closer to me, her voice low but sweet. "Special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law," she said with a smile. But I had seen her hand slip something into my glass when she thought no one was looking. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm. Instead of drinking, I discreetly switched glasses with her husband, Richard, who was too busy criticizing my career to notice. 45 minutes later, Richard slumped in his chair, sweating, his face pale. "Dad?" Matthew rushed to him. Caroline screamed. The room erupted in chaos. Her mother gasped, pretending to be horrified, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. My mind raced. What had she poured into the drink? Why target me? And why would she risk her own husband's life instead? That night shattered the fragile balance I had been maintaining with Caroline's family. Suddenly, I wasn't just the unwanted son-in-law. I was the man who had uncovered something far darker beneath their polished facade. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics rushed Richard out of the house as the rest of us stood frozen in shock. Caroline clung to me, trembling, while her mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, feigning concern. But I couldn't stop staring at her. I knew what I'd seen. I knew she had meant for me to drink that cocktail. At the hospital, doctors confirmed that Richard had ingested a dangerous sedative, something potent enough to knock him unconscious and lower his heart rate to alarming levels. Fortunately, he survived after being treated quickly. When the police asked questions, Caroline's mother claimed ignorance, insisting it must have been a mix-up with his medications. Everyone seemed to accept her story. Everyone except me. That night, as we drove home, Caroline sat silently, staring out the window. Finally, she whispered, "Julian, did you see something?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Your mother tried to poison me," I said flatly. She snapped her head toward me, eyes wide with disbelief. What? That's insane. I saw her, Caroline. She put something in my drink. I switched glasses. That's the only reason your father's still alive. Tears welled in her eyes. Why would she do that? The answer weighed heavily on my chest, but I spoke it aloud anyway. Because she's never wanted me in your life, and maybe now she's decided to get rid of me. Caroline shook her head, refusing to believe it, but deep down I could see the fear dawning in her. The next few days were tense. Richard recovered at home, but I noticed Caroline's mother watching me differently now, her mask slipping whenever we locked eyes. There was calculation in her gaze, a coldness that confirmed everything I feared. I couldn't let it go. As a photographer, I'd built a career on noticing details others overlooked, and now those instincts screamed at me. There was more to this family than appearances suggested. I began digging. Late at night, while Caroline slept, I researched her family's businesses, looking for anything unusual. What I found chilled me. Her father's company, Preston Enterprises, wasn't just a real estate empire. It had shell companies tied to offshore accounts, lawsuits quietly settled, whispers of corruption buried under layers of wealth and influence. And her mother? She wasn't just the picture-perfect socialite. She was on the boards of several charitable organizations that funneled money in suspicious ways. One evening, while Caroline was visiting her father, I searched through the study in their mansion. Hidden in a locked drawer, I found documents, bank statements, property deeds, even photographs of men I didn't recognize. Men who looked dangerous. One picture in particular froze my blood. It showed me a candid shot taken while I was walking home from a shoot downtown. Someone had been following me. My pulse raced as footsteps echoed behind me. Caroline's mother stood in the doorway, her smile sharp as glass. Curiosity, she said softly, is a dangerous habit, Julian. I stuffed the papers back and straightened, my jaw tight. Why? Why are you doing this? Why target me? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Because you don't belong. Caroline was supposed to marry someone who could strengthen this family, not weaken it. You were never meant to last, and if you insist on prying into matters that don't concern you, you'll end up regretting it. Her words sent a chill through me. It wasn't just disapproval anymore. It was a threat. From that moment, I knew my marriage wasn't just under strain. It was caught in a war I hadn't realized existed. A war where love clashed with power, and where one misstep could cost me everything. I tried to warn Caroline, but she refused to see it. My mother may be controlling, but she would never hurt anyone, and she insisted. Her denial cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just that she didn't believe me. It was that she couldn't even imagine her parents capable of something so dark. Still, I couldn't back down. The following week, I received an anonymous envelope at my studio. Inside was a single photograph. Me, once again, taken from afar, this time while I was inside a cafe editing photos on my laptop. On the back, written in neat, feminine handwriting, were the words, "Leave Caroline. Or next time, you won't be so lucky." My blood ran cold. I shoved the photo into my bag and rushed home, my mind spinning. Someone wanted me gone, and I had no doubt who was behind it. Caroline's mother had decided subtlety wasn't enough anymore. That night, I confronted her directly during another family dinner. The table was full, laughter echoing through the room, but when I slammed the envelope down in front of her, the laughter died. "You think you can scare me?" I hissed under my breath, only loud enough for her to hear. She glanced at the photo, then at me, her smile never faltering. "If I wanted you gone, Julian," she whispered back, "you'd already be gone." Her calmness shook me more than if she had denied it. She wasn't bluffing. She meant every word. The tension grew unbearable. Caroline noticed the cracks forming, the cold exchanges, the sharp silences, but she was trapped between loyalty to her family and love for me. I could see it tearing her apart. And then, one night, everything changed. I came home late from a gallery event to find our apartment door slightly ajar. My stomach tightened. I stepped inside cautiously, calling Caroline's name. No answer. The lights were off, the place eerily silent. My eyes adjusted, and that's when I saw it. Our living room had been ransacked. Papers scattered, drawers pulled out, photographs ripped from frames. My camera equipment was sawn, mashed on the floor. And in the middle of it all, a single wine glass sat on the coffee table. Half full. My glass. The one I'd been using that morning. A note lay beside it. Next time, drink up. I staggered back, my chest heaving. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. This was a warning shot. Caroline came home minutes later, gasping as she saw the destruction. She ran to me, clutching my arm. "Julian, what happened?" I showed her the note, my voice raw. "This is your family, Caroline. They won't stop until I'm out of the picture. One way or another." Her face went pale. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. Not at me, but at them. That night, she packed a bag. "We're leaving," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't live like this anymore. If they want to control my life that badly, then they don't deserve to be in it." I hugged her tightly, relief and fear colliding inside me. I knew it wouldn't be that simple, but it was the first step. What I didn't know was that the Prestons weren't about to let us walk away quietly, and the secrets I'd stumbled into were far bigger and deadlier than anything I had ever imagined. We moved into a small rental house on the outskirts of Asheville, far away from Caroline's family estate. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms and creaky floors, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in months, Caroline and I could breathe without the constant weight of her family pressing down on us. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I walked down the street, every time headlights lingered too long outside our window, my instincts screamed danger. Caroline tried to be strong, but I could see the cracks forming. She loved her family, despite everything, and cutting ties had torn something inside her. At night, she'd sit awake in bed, staring at her phone, waiting for a message from her father. He hadn't reached out once since we left, but her mother had, dozens of times, threatening, manipulative messages that Caroline deleted before I could read. One evening, while Caroline was out getting groceries, I found her phone buzzing on the nightstand. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The last message made my blood run cold. "If you don't come back where you belong, Julian won't make it to Christmas." When Caroline returned, I confronted her. She broke down, sobbing. "I didn't want to tell you. I thought if I ignored it, she'd stop." My chest tightened. "Caroline, this isn't just obsession.